Good morning and welcome to another video about Neptune entering Aries. So this video is going to be a little bit about, I am just going to kind of wing it as we go, but about how, as we discussed in the video yesterday, looking at the history, a lot of these different time frames have had some Aquarius energy to them, and the Aquarius energy that we saw and a lot of the Pluto energy that we saw was still the powers that be having control over us, and us needing to take this spiritual wisdom and this spiritual knowledge and ancient teachings and keep them underground and things like that. And I really do think, as yesterday indicated, that the time that we are entering into right now is a time when truths are going to be coming to the surface. I mean, already even just, the knowledge that has been coming forward about what's underneath the pyramids, and I think we are going to have this great awakening, this great discovery of knowledge, even just looking at all the information that's coming out around proving the conspiracy theorists right about the childhood vaccine schedule and how it's never actually been tested against placebos and things like that. I think we are going to have a lot of truths uncovered, and I think that is going to be true in the realm of our spiritual knowledge and what has been hidden from us there in the text, such as the Bible or whatever, what has been kept from us so that the powers that be can have control. But the thing that came to my awareness yesterday was kind of another conspiracy theory that is being proved right. And when regardless of your beliefs or anything, when COVID was coming out, one of my hesitations that people thought I was crazy for at the time to taking the shot was that it, the technology is new and things like that, and that we would potentially, with the RNA having the potential to mess with our DNA and things like that, that if it did, that could then lead to conversations down the road about, well, what is a human, and if your DNA, if you're genetically modified, then can you claim sovereignty, or are you now a piece of patented equipment, things like that. And I think we are going to see some of that. So where this is coming from is watching a video yesterday, and I will link it in the description box below. For some reason right now I can't even think of the YouTube channel that I watched it on, but it was talking about that a recent scientific article has come out showing, and it isn't necessarily about the RNA that was in the pokies. It is about the nanotechnology that was both within the pokies themselves, as well as, if anyone, which most people got, in the hydrogel of the PCR tests. And I can't remember if I said that I'm talking about the nanobot technology, the graphene oxide, things like that were in the shots, the PCR tests. And apparently there is not a current lidocaine or lidocaine derivative on the market right now that does not include these nanobots and its technology. So if you go to the dentist and have to get numbed up, you're getting these. If you go and get, blood drawn or something like that, and have them put the, rub a little lidocaine on your arm before they take blood or whatever, even in that, there are these nanobot technologies. And so basically what this is talking about is us becoming transmitters, able to receive and transmit radio frequencies through this graphene oxide and through these nanobot technology. And this guy who's been studying this and who was bringing forth this article, he's not the one who performed the science on it, but he is one of the ones that is helping discover this and everything. And so he started looking into this like decades ago with military personnel and Havana syndrome, and then started finding it. So like you can take a radio frequency device and scan a person's body, and he was talking in this episode that I'll link to in the description box below about how military personnel have a certain areas of their bodies light up with radio frequency energy, RF energy, and they have a certain like profile. And then you take people who have been incarcerated, and they all also light up in certain areas with radio frequency. And it used to be that just those populations had this, or perhaps if somebody had a surgery or something like that, there might be some other, anomalies in the population. But the general population did not light up with a radio frequency pattern. And now what they're finding is the general population is showing up with these patterns, particularly those who have received the shot or had PCR tests or have been to the dentist within the last several years. And so it's talking about how, 5G and 6G, when they roll that out, like how that can be utilized by, say, our government or something like that to transmit thoughts, to transmit things into your mind. They have made us radio antennas, basically. And so there's the whole ethical consideration, right? Like nobody is consenting to this, as well as the if we're not fully human, are we patentable and things like that. But where this took me in my mind is back to the astrology of, this Neptune entering Aries cycle that we're in is heavy in Aquarius. And I feel like a lot of what's going on right now is a battle in technology as well as a spiritual battle. But, in the past, I don't know, that's why it's kind of exciting for me for astrology maybe to become more mainstream in this cycle, because like anything else, the chance to beat the powers that be or whatever is half the battle is just knowing, right? Same with addiction or anything like that. Like the first step is admitting that there's a problem and knowing that there's a problem, and then the next step is trying to figure out what to do about it. So when I was listening to this, my thoughts immediately went to how the current chart is very, Aquarius heavy, which is technology and innovation and things like that. And, if we're not careful and not aware, then this technology can be used against us. But if we are aware, then maybe there's ways that we can combat it and keep the power. So I'm going to pull up the chart again, and we're just going to kind of go through a little bit of what I'm seeing in the battle between, the the powers that want to control all of us, and then what we can do on our front. And again, because I feel like I sound crazy right now, I will link the video that I watched about all this in the description box below, because I'm sure my ability to regurgitate things in a comprehensive, cohesive manner where I sound super believable is not the best. Mercury is retrograde in my natal chart, which I feel like sometimes makes my ability to get my points across and my ability to communicate is a little struggled sometimes. But so anyway, here we have up again the chart of yesterday, which is when Neptune entered into Aquarius. And I just want to focus on this because, you know, in the history that we looked at yesterday, we did see that cycle of, and granted it was more in the spiritual context of what was going on in religious movements and governments and things like that, and their control versus us trying to branch out, and kind of the back and forth of that. So I just kind of wanted to go through how a chart like this can be used for more nefarious purposes, say by the ones that are in the highest power, and how it can be used by everyday people like us to manifest the things that we want and to kind of fight back. Again, just to be aware of what's going on. So as far as like Neptune and Aries, right? Neptune is the planet of in its highest vibration, right? It is about that oneness, that compassion, that universal love, that understanding that we are all splinters of the same divine, that we all come from the same whatever source it is that you believe in. If you do believe in one, but even if you don't, like, Neptune is the planet of compassion and love, and also can be the planet of seeing things through rose-colored glasses, but where we can really be dreamers and dream like the best scenarios possible, and then figure out a way. You know, it's our imagination. So you want to, when you're looking at building your life, right, you want to reach for the stars. You want to reach for the best case possible. And then, you know, some of these other planets like Saturn, which is about to, you know, meet up with Neptune and Aries, Saturn would come in and kind of organize and say, okay, well, this is a little far reaching, this we can actually do. But then on the more negative side, Neptune is where boundaries, which is why it's a planet of very spiritual in nature as well, is because it's a planet that lacks boundaries. So that can be both good, because it helps thin the veil and helps us tap into our intuition, helps us tap into our potentially psychic abilities, helps us tap into higher selves, tap into spirit, tap into God, have that direct connection with God. Like, those are all the things with that lack of boundaries that Neptune can bring. But it can also bring a lack of boundaries between you know, ourself and others. And it can be where it can bring cloudiness, it can bring confusion, it can bring addiction, it can bring escapism, it can bring things like that. So with Neptune being in Aries, which is the sign of the individual, it is the sign of the warrior, it is the sign of the I am presence, right? It is who we are. It's what we're willing to stand up and fight for. It is that type of energy. So with Neptune and Aries, you know, on the best case, it can bring out the spiritual warrior in us, right? It can bring out the things that we are willing to stand up and fight for, but compassion at the same time, like wanting to fight for not only for what's right for us, but for what's right for everybody. Things like that. It can bring us closer to, having that direct connection with God without having to go through other sources and things like that. But then it can also, on the negative side, if we're not aware, it can have us individually be easily manipulated, have us be willing to fight for beliefs that maybe we aren't even sure where these beliefs are coming from, right? Like there's a fogginess, a confusion of what is my own thoughts and what is being projected onto me. And that's something that the guy in this video that I was watching was talking about, is how now is the time where we need to really unplug from a lot of things and spend time sitting with ourselves, not necessarily even in meditation or anything like that, but just spend time sitting with ourselves, getting to know ourselves and getting to know what, without any outside influence, whether that's people in our own family or the people on TV or YouTube or whatever, sitting with ourselves and feeling how we really feel about things and what our own natural thoughts are, and really being in tune with that. And there's a practice to that too, knowing what messages are coming from, more divine sources. They're loving, they're uplifting, they're things like that. But, other more negative influences or subconscious programming that is holding you back from living your best, truest life are those more negative, more critical voices, So really getting in tune with yourself and getting in tune with that highest vibration voice. And then when you come back to engage with the world, notice what types of thoughts are coming into your own mind so that you can maybe be aware of when you may be being activated by, waves that are coming over 5G and eventually 6G and things like that, to know whether the thoughts are your own. Like if you're starting to have thoughts that don't sit with who you truly are in your innermost being, then they're probably not yours. And that's kind of the science and the technology that we are entering into in this age. And the first thing is being aware of that. So then if we go kind of look at this Aquarius energy, we have Pluto here that's going to be here until 2044, so it's here for the long haul. And in some of the previous cycles that we talked about, it seemed that sometimes Pluto always represents like power struggle, and it represents things hidden, but in the highest vibration, it is those things hidden coming to light. Anything dark coming to light, to be seen, to be transformed, to be alchemized, transmuted, and turned from something bad into something good. Truths coming, anything hidden coming to the surface, right? Which I do think we are seeing a lot of that. But I think that is the battle that we're in right now, is because Aquarius represents the people, right? And Pluto represents power struggles within ourselves, power struggles with, governments and institutions and things like that. So I think we're seeing that. I think as truths are being uncovered and things are coming to the surface, and a large part of that is because we as a collective are demanding it, right? But at the same time, they're gonna feel like they're losing control, right? So they're gonna hold on to control as much as possible. So there's gonna, like with the tech, I think there's going to be a real battle of technology, and technology being used to, and scientific advances and things like that, because this is, innovation. Aquarius is also, it's stepping outside of the box. It's taking taking the bad things, getting rid of the bad things that institutions brought, and looking at it from a different way, shaking it up, stepping outside of the box, doing things better, with a mind that it should be for the collective good. And I think that's where a lot of the battle is a lot of these people at the top, they don't think that the average person is smart enough to make their own personal decisions. So they want to have this type of nanobot technology or radio frequency so that they can control us, control our minds, control what we do, because we don't know any better. And so you'll see stuff, technology like this continuing to come out, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that we have no clue about that's in our air and water and things like that. Like if there's stuff that we're just learning about that's in lidocaine, right? On that note too, really quick, and then we'll get back into the Aquarius. I've seen some posts about people building, Faraday cages, not only for EMP EMP events, whether there's like attacks from foreign governments or just interruptions in our system due to what's going on in the solar system, solar flares, things like that. People will have Faraday cages for like their technology, but I've seen people do them for their home, like a room in their homes as well. And they go in and they're able to, think clearly and have pleasant thoughts. And then they exit these rooms and they just feel bombarded by thoughts that don't feel like their own. So it's fascinating. And, one of the things that we had to get rid of was lead paint. Well, what lead paint keeps those Wi-Fi and radio frequency things out. So then going back to this Aquarius and technology. So not only do we have the power struggle, but I think it's going to be like with these, in the video that I'll link below, with the like nanobot graphene oxide type stuff, the best thing apparently we can do is take zeolite, which is a binder, and it binds really well to that. And this guy has seen like a 70% reduction in radio frequency that he scans his people with, that are showing, signs of the Havana syndrome and stuff like that. So just being aware of how we can combat the things that are being done to us without our consent. But then just overall, they like I've said, try to keep control with technological advances, whether that's through AI or various other things. Is Aquarius is very much air related. It is an air sign, so that could be things being in our air, could be one way that or air waves, right, could be one way that they are airwaves, radio frequencies controlling the mind. Aquarius is very much about the mind and the intellect, so that's all fascinating. But then it's also technology and scientific advancement and innovation and things like that. So I really think that another way we can combat it is by bringing back some of the ancient wisdom, right, which is indicated by this Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, bringing back the ancient wisdom of our ancestors and looking into sound healing, right? Like I'm not 100% sure, but there are theories that the pyramids could have been used as healing chambers for sound healing, so is sound healing some ways that we can combat some of the things that they are trying to do to us. I think a lot of more natural medicine, right? We also have both the moon, which represents the people, and Uranus retrograde in Taurus, which is doing things different, revolution, right? So us taking a stand by not only grounding our spiritual practices into, our earthly existence, whether that's purification rituals or, whatever, just connecting with the earth more, like grounding techniques, things like that. That's, can be both spiritual and health related as well. And taking control back, right? Revolutionizing instead of having lawns, growing our own food. This is also the financial system, like building, Aquarius is community, so building community, relying on community, growing our own food, bartering, if necessary, if all the banking collapse, like figuring out what our value system is and how to work as a community, so there's that. And then bringing back herbalism as well, and some of the more ancient traditions that have had to go underground in this last cycle that we were in, from 1880 to the early 1920s. They really punished any of the alternative ancient medicines that have worked for thousands of years so that big pharma could take control, right? So there's going to be this power struggle between the people, the collective, and the top echelons, big pharma, of who's going to take control. So bringing back some of this ancient wisdom, these ancient practices, as well as developing new ones to combat whatever they're doing. So just being aware of that and having the science, using the science to our advantage, not putting our heads in the sand like we did with, the childhood vaccine schedule for so long, just immediately trusting what our officials were telling us, that, there have been safety studies done when there has not, and that's coming out now, right? So yeah, revolutionize, like in all of these areas, right? Venus is finances, value system, love, relationships. Mercury is thought processes, communication. So, our social media, just the way we think, and are our thoughts our own, or are they coming from somewhere else? The sun, that's us and our drive and our ego and our vitality. Where do we get that from? Mars, in the health aspect, that can be blood and things like that. All of these have health aspects as well. But this is our willpower, our motivation, our drive, our passion, and what we're willing to fight for. So there's definitely, with Mars and Pluto here, there's definitely, like, I can see a battle of truths coming to light versus wanting to keep things hidden, wanting to keep control over the collective population, but the collective population saying no, right? And so there is this sextile, there's this divine mini grand triangle, right? Which, if we don't put up a fight, this divine triangle, right? Sextiles and trines are easy flowing energy, so it could very well be used against us. But if we understand what's going on, we could also use it in the reverse to very easily be, like that visual of a table set on top of the back of like ants. Well, if we just all stand up, their table totally crashes. But in order to do that, we need to be able to, instead of being pit against each other, right? Like with everything that's going on with immigration right now, and I mean, you name the topic, right? There's when we get to the point where people are saying, well, if you even consider thinking anything on the other side, like I can't engage with you, you're shutting down conversation right away. There can be, in any of these situations, there can be yes and, right? Like there is a place to come together on these issues. And if you're not open-minded enough to see that and to engage in conversation, then they're winning. They're pitting us against each other so that we can't see what they're doing. We can't see the plans where they are having this technology where we are radio frequency devices that they can plant ideas into our head. And if we're not aware of that, then we're not going to be able to fight it, and we're not going to know whether we have control over our own mind or not, right? So to be able to take a step back and engage in conversation, even when it's uncomfortable, even if we don't think that there's any way that we could see another side of the situation, we need to be able to do that. And, also with Neptune in Aries, it is the planet of deception, right? And so in this trine, that could mean that we could be easily deceived. Like it's just crazy the amount of lies and like the flip-flopping of ideologies, like changing on ideologies that's coming from both sides, right? And that's where I think we need to be able to take a step back and to see what's really going on and to come together as a people and realize that we are not actually the enemies of each other. It is bigger powers that are the enemy. And I think if we stop disagreeing or stop having conversation about these other issues, then we will be able to see that we are just being manipulated. So that is that. But really what I wanted to come on here and talk about was just to open up the conversation and have people be aware that this stuff is going on, that we are being turned into human antennas, and to be aware of that and to be aware of your thoughts. Like be aware of what's coming into your brain, and does it feel right? Does it feel wrong? Like really tapping into this North Node and Pisces, and the highest vibration of Neptune and Aries, right? Like tune into yourself, not anyone else. Tune into the universal compassion and love for all, and realizing, like, tune into source and tune into yourself, and go from there. And then let's also, as a collective, use science and innovation and technology to combat, using ancient tools and new tools and things like that to combat whatever it is that they're bringing down upon us. And as far as the nanobot technology and things like that, apparently the best thing on the market for that right now is zeolite products. So I just felt that important to come on and talk about. So let me know what you think in the comments. I know it's not my normal videos, but I did feel it relevant just because, it's involving technology. It's involving our mind and our thoughts. And, especially with Mercury here, and that we can use astrology to be aware of what's going on, and to be aware that there's a higher vibration side and a lower vibration side. And we the people need to stand up and work as a collective and not be divided. Have the power struggle between us as a collective in that top echelon versus us in the collective battling each other. Let's come together and be aware of all the ways that we are being manipulated. That is what I was coming in to say today. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and we are almost to February. February is going to be another big month. I do have a couple more Neptune and Aries videos that I want to get out before getting out the February energy look ahead video, but we'll see the timing of those things. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I don't think I've said it in this video. I'm Sarah at Life with Training Wheels. Give me a like, a subscribe, a share, a comment, anything, any way you can engage with this would greatly help my tiny little channel grow. Much appreciated.